All right, let's just jump right into a huge question. What if everything you've ever been told about getting ahead, go to school, get a good job, save your money, what if all of that is actually a trap? I mean, that's the big, provocative idea behind one of the most famous and, frankly, controversial finance books ever written, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is a book that has literally made millions of people stop and rethink everything they thought they knew about money.
And the whole story, really, it just kicks off with this one simple line. You see, the author, Robert Kiyosaki, he grew up with two dads, two really powerful father figures in his life. On one hand, you've got his actual dad, super smart, highly educated, a top government official, but he struggled with money his whole life. That was his poor dad. And then, on the other hand, there was his best friend's dad. This guy never even finished the 8th grade, but he ended up building a business empire. And yep, you guessed it, that was his rich dad.
And their ideas about money? Oh man, they were just worlds apart. I mean, look at this. Poor dad, his highly educated father, always said, the love of money is the root of all evil. But then rich dad would come right back and say, no, the lack of money is the root of all evil. Think about that for a second. It's a complete 180. And this constant clash of ideas forced a young Robert Kiyosaki to really think for himself, to pick a path. And that choice, he says, is what made all the difference.
All right, so what's the first big lesson we get from all this? Well, it's all about one thing, escaping what the book famously calls the rat race. And you know what that is, right? It's that endless hamster wheel of life. You work hard to get a paycheck, you get a raise, so you spend a little more, and now you're stuck needing an even bigger paycheck. It's this cycle that's just constantly driven by fear and desire.
So get this, when he was just 9 years old, little Robert goes up to his rich dad and asks him, "Can you teach me how to get rich?" And the offer he gets back is, well, it's not what he expected. Rich dad basically says, sure, I'll teach you, but forget about a classroom. It's not going to happen. You're going to work for me. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. So right from the start, the lesson was clear. This was going to be hands-on, real-world learning, not some boring lecture.
And what was this life-changing job? Dusting canned goods in one of Rich Dad's convenience stores for a measly 10 cents an hour. Yeah, you heard that right. So after 3 weeks of this totally mind-numbing work for basically nothing, Kiyosaki is just fuming. He's ready to quit. He feels completely used and exploited. But this was all part of Rich Dad's plan.
And that's when Rich Dad sits him down and reveals the real lesson. He says, look, most people's lives are run by two simple emotions, fear and desire. The fear of not having money, that's what pushes you out the door every morning to go to work. And then desire kicks in. You see all the nice things you could buy with a bigger paycheck, so you start chasing that, and boom, that's the trap. That right there is the rat race.
So, believe it or not, Rich Dad pushes them even harder. He gets them to work for free, for nothing. Why? Because he wanted to completely break their dependence on a paycheck. He wanted to force their brains to look for opportunities, not just a wage. And guess what? It totally worked. They started noticing things, like how the store was just throwing away old comic books. And that's when the light bulb went on. They collected all those comics and started a comic book library in a basement, charging other kids 10 cents to get in. All of a sudden, money was coming in even when they weren't physically there. And that was it. That was their very first lesson in how to make money work for you.
Okay, so making money work for you. That's the goal. But how in the world do you actually do that? Well, that brings us to the next lesson, and this one is, it's probably the biggest secret in the whole book.
It's the one rule that the rich know, that the rest of us, well, we just don't. And what is it? It's something incredibly simple on the surface. It's just knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. The book's whole point is that most people, even super educated people, never really truly get this.
Now forget all the complicated accounting definitions you've ever heard. Rich Dad's definition is beautifully, powerfully simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. Period. That's it. It's something that generates income for you. And you guessed it, a liability is the exact opposite. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. It's really that simple. An asset feeds you, a liability eats away at you. And here's the core message of the whole book. The rich spend their time and money acquiring assets. The poor and the middle class, they spend their lives acquiring liabilities that they think are assets.
And this leads us right to the book's most famous and probably most controversial idea. We've all been told, right? Your house is your biggest asset. But hang on. Based on the super simple definitions we just talked about, is it really?
According to Rich Dad's logic, the answer is a big fat no.
Your personal residence, the house you live in, is a liability. Why? Just think about the cash flow. Every single month, money is flowing out of your pocket for the mortgage, for taxes, for insurance, for upkeep and repairs. It doesn't put a dime in your pocket. Now, a rental property, that's a different story. That could be an asset, but only if it's actually generating positive cash flow after all the expenses. So that brings us to the next lesson. Mind your own business. Now, this doesn't mean what you think it means. It's not about quitting your job to become an entrepreneur. Nope. It's about understanding the difference between your profession and your business. See, your profession is your job. That's what pays the bills. But your business is your asset column. It's about focusing on building that.
So what kinds of things should be in that asset column? We're talking about real assets, things like businesses that you own, but don't have to physically run, stocks, bonds, real estate that actually generates income, notes or IOUs from other people, even royalties from things like books or music. You see the pattern here? The common thread is that these are all things that can make you money even when you're sleeping. That is your real business.
And this is where all these ideas really come together in one simple but super powerful diagram from the book. It's called the cash flow quadrant.
The whole idea here is that every single person who earns money fits into one, or maybe more, of these 4 categories. And the crucial thing to get is that it's not about your job title or what industry you're in. It's all about where your cash comes from.
So, let's just break it down really quick. Over on the left, you've got E for employee. Pretty simple. You have a job, you trade your time for money. Then there's S for self-employed or small business owner. Here, you don't just have a job, you own your job. The catch is, if you stop working, your income stops too. Now on the right side, we've got B for business owner. This is someone who owns a system and has people working in that system. And finally, I is for investor. This is where your money works for you.
And here's the absolute key takeaway from this whole thing. It's the difference between the left side and the right side. If you're on the left side, as an E or an S, your income depends on you actively working. You are working for money. But if you're on the right side, as a B or an I, you have systems or investments working for you. Your money is working for you. And according to the book, making that shift from the left side to the right side, that is the real path to financial freedom.
So, okay, we've talked about escaping the rat race, the difference between assets and liabilities, minding your own business, and this whole cash flow quadrant thing. So what's the big idea that ties it all together?
Well, the book leaves you with this really powerful thought. Every single time a dollar comes into your hands, you and only you have the power to choose its destiny. It's like a vote for your future. You can spend it on liabilities, which pretty much guarantees you stay stuck, or you can use that dollar to buy an asset and cast a vote for becoming wealthy. The choice is literally yours every single day.
At the end of the day, the book just lays out the 2 very different paths taught by 2 very different dads. So after hearing all this, the most important question isn't what Robert Kiyosaki chose. The real question is, what will you choose?